Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Carboss. We continue our series with Commander Kumar and explore the automotive industry through his experience. Welcome back, Commander Kumar.
Thank you, Taj, and a namaste to everyone.
So, Commander, our first question for today is, in our previous episode, we discussed training specific to sales. What kind of training structure would you recommend for the after-sales team?
Right, I think first thing when we talk about after-sales training, we are implying training for technicians, service advisors, the customer care team relevant to the service centers, and all the support teams in the service center. So that must be very clear. These are the people who come under this purview. Now, one very glaring observation that I should make is after sales training or professional in-house after sales training is something which is probably not prevalent in most of the car dealerships in India. Very sad. I may be saying this. I'm not talking about every dealership. There could be some dealerships having this in-house training. By far, most of the dealerships don't have, which is extremely disappointing, which is very sad, which is also very catastrophic because people are losing a lot of money because they don't have this training facility. Now, there are two reasons I would think why this situation prevails. The first is that most of the OEMs do conduct some level of training for the after sales team, not very regularly at their convenience, not really befitting the requirements of the dealerships, but it is done, whether it is for technicians, whether it is for service advisors, or even for customer care team. They do that. But I don't think that is really sufficient to meet the objectives that we have. The second reason as to why this training is not existing is the dealerships feel that, well, one is the OEMs are doing it. Second, they feel there's a lot of investment. Why go into this? There is not going to be returns. Everyone looks at this again as an expense, not as an investment. Now, during this course of this episode, we will also talk sometime about the outcomes and huge amount of outcomes you get out of this, which people are not aware of, which we'll discuss because these are substantial things to talk about. But the fact is, these trainings don't exist today in most of the dealerships. So that is a background to this whole section. Now, coming to actually how to set up an after-sales training facility or a system. First is to select the trainers. Now, in the case of after-sales, you require two trainers, not one. One is a technical trainer who basically is going to be the person going to train the technicians and even the service advisors on the technical matters. This person, the best source of getting a candidate, like I've always been saying, even for sales, do not look for trainers outside the system. Don't go and get from some other dealership, pick up somebody from elsewhere. They really don't match because you need people with relevant experience. The best candidate for a professional technical trainer is a senior technician or a master technician from the dealership who is extremely sound technically, very, very important. He has to be technically very, very sound. The second aspect that we require is someone who has got good communication skills. Not necessarily in English, could be the local language because he has to explain to technicians and service advisors. The third, very important, is he must have an aptitude for teaching or training. These three are very important. Now, you will definitely find one or two people who meet this criteria in every dealership. There will be. Now, the problem that I envisage is people don't want to move from being a technician to a trainer because there are a lot of apprehension about the kind of monetary loss that they may get. This is something which is very real. So very important that once you are identified a person, that he has to be paid or compensated and given a salary much better than what is currently earning. Also, assurance that he can grow, he can reach higher levels, and we should be assured that tomorrow, maybe after a few years, he can become a service manager. So I think if you can give that assurance and a good salary package, you can definitely get someone out of your own system. So that is the first part, the technical trainer. The second trainer that you require is someone who is going to teach people on soft skills and processes. I would call him as an operations trainer. Again, here, the right candidate would be someone from the system, a senior service advisor, someone who has got very good track record as a service advisor, which means he has been generating good amount of revenues for the organization. He has had no customer complaints. He has an excellent relationship with customers. And a person who's got good communication skills, someone who's got a passion to train. Here again, you need to fix a good monetary package so that he's willing to move it. Now, these are the two trainers that we require, the technical trainer and the operations trainer. Once you have identified these two people, then the next one is to setting up an infrastructure. Basically, a classroom is required, and this must be located in a service center. Very, very important, because you will have lots of requirements of the trainees to be going to the shop floor to sort of familiarize with what they're learning in the classroom. So it cannot be, sort of isolated. It has to be part of a service center, and a good service center which has got both mechanical and body shop. That will be the best kind of service center you can have. Once you have identified this location, very important also for the classroom to have audiovisual facilities. Plus, you must have lots of training aids. Now, what are these training aids? These training aids are basically a lot of parts of the automobile. It could be engine block, it could be the transmission, it could be the suspension systems, steering, etc., which are there important for people to familiarize as they learn in the classroom with the parts. This becomes real life learning. Now, some of these, display units, kits must also be what you call, working models, where it could be an engine firing system or a steering system, etc. You need to get those working models, which is available. Now, it's not easy to get all this overnight. It will take some time. But as you build your training facility and as you progress, I'm sure that these training aids can be acquired. But very important that you must acquire this. So you have the trainer, you have the facility. Now let's get into the training part. Now, I may not be able to cover training for service advisors, technicians, and customer care, etc. But I will very briefly talk about first the technicians. Now, these technicians, who are these technicians that a dealership should? I'm talking about freshers. They must be people from ITIs where they are in the automobile stream, not from mechanical. Very important. There are a lot of ITIs who give specialized training on automobile engineering. We should take those technicians from there. These guys are inducted into the organization as trainees and paid the minimum wages. The duration of the training should be 1 year. Now, one might say this is too long. 1 year, how do I keep a person training? But don't forget, this person during the course of this 1 year is also adding value to the system, because he will be not only studying in the classroom, he will also be working in the shop floor, assisting a senior technician. So there is a value addition. It's not that he is only being a source of expenditure, but it's also a source of income. So this 1 year is very important, because if you're going to cut short this, then what you're going to get at the end of the training is not a full-fledged technician. It's important that you get a person who is really, really well-trained, good foundational training has been done. The fundamentals are very clear. Now, this training would be both classroom and shop floor. So the technical trainer conducts classroom training. He also takes them to the floor. These technicians work under a senior technician as an assistant. And this whole training must be structured for this 1 year long duration. Starting from washing the car, very important. It is not that they start straight away on to doing technical things. They should know how to even wash a car. That's very important. So you start from there and progressively move up, so that by the end of 1 year, this technician is capable to do a free service, maybe a first free service or a second free service on his own. And I'm from what I've seen is, even after 6 months, some of these guys are so good, they can independently do that. But keep them under training for 1 year. At the end of 1 year, do a test. If they pass, certify them as a junior technician, where they'll get into the normal salary structure of the organization and start to even earn incentive. So this 1 year is a must. But if it's done well, you can be sure that you have a good bunch of expert technicians comes in. So that is briefly as far as technicians are concerned. Now coming to the service advisors. Why I'm going to be speaking more about service advisors, I have a certain belief, which many people will disagree, but I want to express that. In my opinion, the most important segment of people in a car dealership is not the sales consultant, but the service advisor.
Oh, okay.
I've had a lot of arguments about this, but I've seen hands-on why I'm insisting, and this is a matter of conviction, that the service advisor is, if you have the right service advisor, so I'm not talking about anyone, a good, competent service advisor is a great, great asset to the organization. And a group of service advisors can actually sort of imply the entire future of the organization. You can carry it. The destiny of the organization can be actually sort of chartered by these guys. That is the impact of good service advisors. Now, why I'm saying this? If you look at a sales consultant, his interaction with a potential customer from the time they come as an inquiry to the time you deliver a car, maybe for 2 months. I don't think it exceeds 2 months. Within 2 months, you deliver the car. Once a car is delivered, sales consultants do keep in touch with customers. They have to talk to them about certain documents to be given, etc., finding out if the car is doing well. All those carries on. But what I've observed is even with the best of sales consultant, with all the training that you do, at the end of 1 year, they are not in touch with more than 30% of their customers. It's a fact. Somewhere they will say, I'm not able to contact him, or the customer is not calling back, not taking the call, etc., etc. A lot of things happen. So the contact between the sales consultant and the customer comes down to 30%. That means if he sold 100 cars, he's just about to meet with 30 customers. Yeah. So that's all the level of interaction between the person from the dealership and the customer. 30% is what a sales consultant is able to keep in touch with. But if you come to the service advice, his first contact with the customer happens at the first free service. I'm talking about the Indian context.
Yes.
Where normally the first service happens between 2 to 3 months. So if the service advisor is trained well, he's very competent in all the aspects that we want him to be, then you will find that in the first service interaction itself, he builds a good bond with the customer. The customer starts to trust him, a lot of confidence in him. This is where the relationship starts. Now this continues. It doesn't just stop at 1 year or 2 years, because the service periods keep on 1 year, 2 years, it keeps continuing. Through the entire ownership of the car, this customer is in touch with the service advisor. Again, provided he's trained well. He's a very competent guy. Now, once that happens, see the amount of benefit that it accrues to the dealership in terms of, forget about the revenues, but this person, if he wants to buy the next car upgrade, he will ask the service advisor, which car should I buy? If his friends or relatives want to buy the car, he will talk to the service advisor. So he becomes the bond between, or the bridge between the dealership and the customer, the service advisor. This is where the relationship becomes very impactful and very, very influential. And it's so important for a dealership to have that band of service advisors who can generate this kind of bonding, which leads to better revenue generation and the overall well-being of the service of the dealership. So this is the reason why I said the service advisors are most influential, most impactful as far as a dealership is concerned. Now, having said that, what is the kind of people that we take and training? That is why I would like to discuss this in a little more length as to how we can get good service advisor out of professional training. First, whom do we source as service advisors? The people should be basically diploma holders from mechanical engineering or automobile engineering. But there could even be sometimes engineering graduates who come in. I would prefer diploma holders because in my experience, I found they are more stable. They don't move on, because normally degree holders tend to go for a post-graduation or move on to something else very quite fast. So diploma holders are the best source of intake. Now, this process of selection must be done very, very carefully, because like we talked about in the case of sales consultant, you lose the entire game if you're going to take the wrong guys. So very important that the selection should not be left to anybody in the HR department. This must be conducted by the head of HR, the head of service, CEO, and even the dealer principal, because they are so critical to the organization. You just cannot compromise on the quality of intake. So what do we look at when we take guys? First, very important thing, the person should have a very pleasant disposition, somebody who looks pleasant to deal with. Second, he should have good grooming. Very important. Grooming must be there. He can't be looking shabby. The third very important thing is a person has good communication skills, that he's able to express himself. I'm not saying very fluency, etc., but skills, communication should be pleasant. The fourth very important thing is someone who has high energy levels. Now, you'll say when you interview a person, how do you make out the energy levels? You're not asking to do a circus, but you can really make out a guy has got energy or not, because he sits in front of you and he looks like a person who is completely drained out, who's what do you call it, not interested in what he's there for. So I think you can make out a person who has got some kind of, you can't be a lethargic person sitting there. And why it is important is You're dealing with customers who want to see some kind of energy in you when you're meeting them. So these four are very critical parameters as far as selection is concerned, in terms of disposition, grooming, communication, and energy levels. If a person suits that, you take them on. Very important, again, like in the case of consultants, we have to make sure they pay the best salary. In my opinion, if I were given the choice, I would pay a service advisor, a trainee service advisor, more salary than a consultant. It may be controversial in an organization, but I would think they deserve. But anyway, I would believe that, but you can't be less than what the consultant is paid. Once they are taken in, of course, they should be told about the growth opportunities they have. And I would think any trainee service advisor, if he continues to perform well, in a matter of 7 years, you should be able to head a service center. That's the kind of timeline I look at. You can't be beyond 7 years. In fact, even 5 to 7 years, the person should be able to become a service manager. Now, once you have taken this guy in, he's a trainee. Now, you have a good intake, the training is going to be extremely critical. Now, this is where we'll spend a little time. We have the process trainer. The first thing that the service advisor should be trained on is on soft skills. Please remember, the soft skills requirement of a service advisor is more demanding than even for a consultant. Because when you're selling a car, somebody comes there to buy a car, he looks at, he's not happy with the car, he goes away. But in the case of a service advisor, the customer who comes in to get his car serviced, if he has a problem with the car, if he is an aggrieved customer, he is going to be agitated, he's going to be, I would think, very angry. And to deal with such customers, you need a lot of good soft skills. The ability to listen to somebody, ability to maintain a composure with, when things are going bad. These are things that are very, very important. Soft skills have to be trained in a very, very detailed manner. The way that you stand and talk, your body language, the way you speak to them on the phone, all this must be trained. Soft skills forms an essential and very important part of a service advice. So that is the first part of the training. And I would think that will take about 2 to 3 days of training with a lot of demonstrations extra. The second part of the training is what you call technical training. Now, most of these guys who come from diploma holders, they would have done more of classroom learning than actual practical training. And unfortunately, for a service advisor, his exposure to practical training once he starts his job is very limited. He might just see cars getting done, but they don't get involved in to find out how things are diagnosis or repairs, etc. So something must be very, very, very elaborate. You can't do training like we did for the technicians 1 year. This should be for about 2 months or at least 6 weeks, where they are put under the care of a senior technician. They should work with their own hands, understanding how services are done, how certain critical repairs are carried out. Not that they're going to become expert. The whole idea of this technical training for service advisors is to understand rather than being an expert in repairs. Their ability to diagnose, ability to understand a technical problem is very important. They don't have to actually carry out the repairs. So this must be the focus of this technical training, where they should be spending more time on the shop floor. Now, this training will be done both by the ops trainer, also the technical trainer. The combination of the two, because the ops trainer has to be available there to see that what he would think is important from the perspective of a service advisor is imparted to this guy, and the technical trainer. So this is about 6 weeks of training. After that is over, they must move on to what we call process training. Now, this is very important. What are the processes? There are lots of processes they must learn. These processes include how to receive a car, how to open a job card, how a repair is carried out on the floor. What is the process flow that happens? How is a warranty repair is carried out? If there's a car comes, there is a warranty claim. How is that carried out? How are parts issued from the parts department? How is a car got ready, final inspection done, and how is the car to be delivered? There's a process of delivery. There's a process of invoicing. There is also the process of how to sell value-added services to car, where it is upholstery cleaning or polishing the car itself. This is again a process. How are accessories sold, fitted on the car? These are the various processes that must be taught to the service advisor. This thing will take at least about 2 weeks. So once he's finished the soft skills, the technical training, and the process training. The process training is normally a classroom training. Plus, of course, also in the service center, because you have to see physically how job cards are made. Once these are made, then the service advisor moves to for what I call on-job training. Very important, because you can't straight away put him back to and meet customers to accept cars. This on-job training is done under the guidance of a senior service advisor. What he does is he'll be with the service advisor, meeting customers, opening job cards, getting the service done, delivering the car, etc. This whole thing, then he understands how the whole process works. This will go on for another 2 weeks. At the end of this 2 weeks of on-job training, he should be subjected to a test to see all the aspects of training, whether it is soft skills, whether it is technical training, and the process. If he completes this, then he can be promoted as a junior service advisor and starts to taking cars on his own. But be very careful. Do not give him cars which comes for running repairs, where there are really technical problems where they may not be able to handle customers. Let them deal with first free service, second free service, and slowly move up so that the confidence is built up and he is not subjected to a situation where he will lose his confidence. And then maybe in 6 months' time, he is able to handle every customer. Now, I can very, very confidently say, if you follow this entire training curriculum very diligently, you will get an excellent product at the end of this training. It may take 2.5 months, but it's worth it, because there's no idea time to push him through work where he's going to falter, he's learned the wrong things, and correction becomes more difficult. It's better to train well, make sure he's competent, put him onto the job. 2.5 months is worth it. And I can tell you, the product that you get at the end of the day is going to get you better returns than somebody who is not trained well. So this is as far as the training is concerned. So we talked about the technicians, we talked about the service advisors. In the after-sales department, very important are the customer care. Now, these people also have to be put through training, especially on soft skills, communication skills, telephone calling, the etiquettes of telephone conversation, etc. Because you have people in the front office, you have people calling up customers, taking post-service feedback, etc. Now, very often I've seen there are people who are never trained on how to make a decent, well-mannered conversation. So very important that they also have to. And every other person, starting from the security person at the gate to the person who is delivering the car or the person who is giving the invoice and collecting the payment for the customer, the cashier, etc. Everyone must go through a certain amount of soft skill training. This is very important, because then you have a whole package in the service center where everyone is trained well. Technicians, service advisors, customer care, security guard, everyone. That is where you will have an organization which is really top class, which can meet the requirements of the dealership. So that is how the training must be structured.